Hey folks, got another Warhammer The Old World Tournament report for you, and this one is also featuring my Slayers in Black Powder list. This time I had to increase the list. I think the last one was 1750 for the tournament. This time we were going in at 2,000 points, and I got a few curveballs in terms of going in with the higher points for this event in particular. I'll explain what I mean by all that in just a few moments. But yeah, I brought the dwarves again for this event just because, you know, Old World is a very complicated game. Most editions of Warhammer Fantasy are, and I want to just bring something that I'm as familiar with as I can possibly be, and I've been playing with this army the most lately, so figured it would make sense to bring these guys for another event. And they look really cool, and they got a unique theme, which I always like to have when I go to like these events and stuff. You know, there's always kind of the army on parade aspect to going to a Warhammer event, or really any tabletop event. It's always like kind of a cool part of it. And I'll talk about some of that later on, because actually in this first battle report, I went up against one of the coolest looking armies here. But getting a little bit ahead of myself, as I mentioned, I had to add an extra 250 points to the list here. I realized this kind of last minute, like a day or two before the actual tournament was kicking off. I like double checked the event, and I was like, oh no, it's not 1750 again, it's 2000 now. So I added a cannon, I added another Doom Seeker, and I think I added an engineer as well, because the engineer that I took in my prior list, I replaced with a Thane. I mentioned this as well in my prior battle report. I wanted to take the Thane that has like the double shot, bursting flame with the Ruin of Accuracy build that a lot of people have been doing lately. So I changed my original engineer to that, and then I took a dirt cheap engineer just because I figured I got 3 cannons, I got 2 units of handgunners. Having the rerolls for the handgunners or having the rerolls for the cannons is going to be really useful. So that was my thought process in those additions. Everything else is exactly the same as it was last time, other than I think my Slayer, the Demon Slayer that I took in my list. I also changed his build a little bit. I think he actually came out a little bit cheaper. Instead of going all in on attacking, I gave him a great weapon, Ruin of Parrying, Ruin of Grit, Ruin of the Hateful, and I think he just has 1 Ruin of Wrath. So he's got like 5 attacks, I believe, with a great weapon. He gets to reroll his misses, and he's a little bit more defensive. Still has Ruin of Passage and Ruin of Warding as well. So that's my summary of the list. When I got to the actual place, it was a different store than last time, but very similar crowd. I would say like half the people there were from the event that I played at last time. But the big thing about this place was, I want to say the tables were like 60 by 40. Maybe they had 42 distance, but the distance between us was a lot shorter than what even I normally play with at home. So, probably not the best situation for a range army, but if you're an aggressive melee force, I'm sure you're licking your lips at this opportunity here. And I'm going to let that be my segue into the first game I went into. It was against a Royal Clan Dwarf army. That's right, just like the last tournament, I start myself off with a Dwarf versus Dwarf match. And, yep, Royal Clan means, like, kind of elite build. He had all of his core focused in on one big block of Longbeards. I think they had great weapons, shields, and pretty much any upgrade they could take. He had a unit of Iron Breakers that had his king inside of it, and I think it had a BSB as well. He had an Anvil of Doom and 5 Iron Drakes that kind of just hanged out in the back. That was really his only range. The rest of it went all into the characters, and I'm sure the Anvil of Doom's pretty expensive as well. But yeah, really small, really elite Dwarven force. And he started, and he also had a Dwarven brew cart, so he could bust his units up really fast at me, because he started everything in marching formation. They have like that veteran upgrade or drilled upgrade that lets them disperse after they do their march formation. And yeah, as I mentioned, the board is rather small, so basically on the first turn he was within charge range of all my units, and I will say, like, I think even with, like, the extra 6 inches that he would have had on a 48 board, he probably would have been within, like, a threatening range of me. But, like, yeah, I kind of realized a little bit late into these games, like, oh, crap, like, I really don't have much space to work with here. So, you know, maybe I kind of had the wrong army for the battles that I had ahead of me, you could say. But despite that, I set my cannons up, I prepared for this dwarven assault that this royal clan was going to have on my front lines. And I start the turn off by, like, positioning my Doom Seekers in front of all of his big blocks, try to block everything up, stall as much as I can before he slams into me with all these elite units. And, yeah, the cannons get ready to fire. My first cannon rolls a misfire. That's okay. I had an engineer nearby for a reroll. I used the reroll, got another misfire, and it blew up. Terrible luck. Whatever. I have the second cannon fire, and I roll the dice, and it also got a misfire. And I was like, ah, dang, whatever. Don't worry, because I have Burlock, Damison nearby, and I think I have the Engineer Sapper. I have like 2 or 3 rerolls total in this army. So I used my other reroll here, and I got another misfire. I'm not kidding. This is like actually what happened. And then I got a 4, so it couldn't shoot till next turn. My third cannon, the ace in the hole. All right, he readies his grape shot, and he gets a 2 for the grape shot. And I think he maybe kills 1 Iron Drake. Probably not. So, yeah, pretty rough from the cannons on the first turn there. But it is what it is. I do get a little bit of luck, though, and I'll be talking about it very soon. The handgunners shoot on both sides, and my rangers shoot. I pluck off a couple of the Iron Drakes really early on. I'm going to eliminate them probably, like, by the second or third turn, fortunately. And they really won't be doing too much damage to my troops here. But yeah, his units are going to charge in at my big handgunner block. I'll do a stand and shoot, maybe pick off a couple of his guys, but he's using the Anvil of Doom, I think, to give them re-rolls on their armor saves, and I think they get like +1 to their armor saves, so pretty hard to crack through that. And on the opposite side, he charges one of my Doom Seekers with his Longbeards. And I'm just going to say somehow that Doom Seeker survives the combat against the Longbeards and manages to take a couple of them down. And I thought that was absolutely hilarious. So got a little bit lucky there on the plus side. He's going to get killed off at some point, though. And yeah, what happens in this game I'm going to be pretty quick summarizing most of the games in this tournament. Unfortunately, it was not the best performance from my dwarves or myself, really. More me playing than my dwarves. A little bit of bad luck on this game that I'm wagging my finger at them for, but I made some tactical errors, which I'm about to talk about here. My handgunners lose this combat kind of unsurprisingly, and they're going to fall back in good order, I believe. But the problem is I put the brew cart nearby so they could be within movement range of the buff. But I wasn't looking close enough at the angle that they were going to fall back at, and it'll either be on this turn or the next turn, and they're going to teleport over the Dwarven Brew Cart and just go off the board instead of falling back, which is absolutely wonderful because they actually did pretty good in the melee, and I realized, like, oh, like, yeah, they were probably going to lose, but they would have gone blow for a little while there and probably taken down a couple of his Iron Breakers, enough maybe that could have gotten some scoring points there. But it is what it is, and that's not my opponent's fault. That is me playing stupid and letting my brew cart basically cost my whole unit its demise. So that's unfortunate. The good news is, on the opposite side, my cannon that misfired will continue to do nothing the entire game, but the Slayers are going to charge into the Longbeards with that Doom Seeker, and over the course of the game, they are going to wipe that whole unit out. It won't be in one turn. It'll be like 1 or 2 turns of the Longbeards falling back in good order, continuing to get chopped down. Eventually they'll break. We fail to catch them as they run away, but then I think on the second to last turn, maybe it was the last turn, we do run down and wipe out that whole unit, which is pretty cool. They really only killed like 1 or 2 Slayers. I might have lost a couple more to the Fireball spell or whatever it's called from the Anvil of Doom. Maybe that like hit my unit, but yeah, in terms of the actual losses from the Longbeards, I only lost a couple of Slayers. It was a very good performance from them in this game, which is good because no one else really did good in this game. My cannon, during its next Grapefire shot that it gets, the only other one that it's going to get during this game, is going to roll another 2 on the Grapefire shot and maybe kill, again, like 1 Ironbreaker, and then it's going to die. My other unit of handgunners is going to get caught and killed pretty soon. There is a little bit of a heroic moment, though. The BSB that I put inside that unit that has that ruin, that pimped out handgun, he's actually going to kill the enemy BSB in a 1v1 during the melee combat, which is nice, gets me some points, but he's going to get more points because he wiped that unit out, wiped out my main brick. The Dwarven Rangers are just kind of harassing whoever they can. I think they join in with the BSB on the final turn for a big brawl, but yeah, at the end of the day, he had enough of a lead. It was actually pretty close. One other thing that was pretty cool is his Dwarven Brew cart charged into my Dwarven Brew cart, but totally whiffed its roll, and somehow my Brew cart managed to run his Brew cart over in like a follow-up 2 turns of melee back and forth against each other. So that was a little bit silly. Fun game for sure, and I do think I was a little bit foolish maybe in the way I deployed. Obviously that I screwed myself over really bad with the way I put my Brew cart, but yeah, just also not realizing like how close we actually were, because this wasn't like a standard board. There was like a extra 6 or 8 inches like in difference between each other, and I really didn't put that together until like we actually started the battle there. So it is what it is, and I really won't realize this until like much later on, until someone actually points out how like the boards are actually only 42 distance from each other. I think it's like on the final game, but on the plus side, the next battle that I'm going into here is against the High Elves. I'll be a little bit quicker with the summaries here. But the good news is we got like the long style of deployment, but the bad news is, again, like the table length, I think it was like 60 inches, maybe it was less than that. So like, again, he'll close the gap, because as you can see, almost, I would say 90% of his army is cavalry or flying based. So yeah, I'll go into the army really quick here. He's got a bolt thrower, 10 Sisters of Avalorn. I think that's what they're called. Forgive me, I really haven't played High Elves in a long time. And again, I'm going to draw a blank on these units' names, but he's got 2 of the fast cav units with bows or spears that the High Elves have available, the like Reavers or something. And then he's got a huge unit of Silver Helms, 5 normal archers, I think, just because he needed a couple more points on core. He's got a level 4 wizard on a Star Dragon that's using the lore of battle magic. He got all the really good spells, too. He got the Pillar of Fire, I think he got an extra fireball, and like a couple of other good things. Hammer Hand as well. I think he took the signature because he knew he was going to be in melee with that thing. And then he has 2 Eagles as well. And then he has 4 Silver Helm Chariots. They're all together in a unit. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, it's a really quick army, and he gets across the battlefield, I would say, within 1 or 2 turns. I do get some good shooting attacks in, and honestly, this is like going to be one of the funnest and probably closest games I have during this tournament here. He'll move up pretty quick. I take out almost all of the Silver Helm Chariots except 1 before they're going to close the gap. I kill one of the Eagles. I kill a good chunk of the Silver Helms on the first turn. But on the second turn, when I'm like gonna get my best volley in, I deal a lot of damage to him. But he just aced all of his armor saves when he needed them most, and unfortunately, he's gonna close the gap eventually with those Silver Helms, charge my handgunners, and an Eagle's gonna join in after devouring one of my cannons, and it's gonna be a really bloody battle back and forth between those 2 units. 2 or 3 turns of combat going at it. I should also mention, too, before the Silver Helms charged in there, they had to deal with one of my Doom Seekers that was getting in the way of them. And or he might have charged in, or he was just blocking them. But what ends up happening is the noble snooty elf decides to challenge the lowly dwarven Doom Seeker here to a duel. and I end up sneaking a wound in on the elf, and I think he does manage to kill me, but it's not on this turn. It's like on the follow-up turn. It was a rather whiff of a roll situation, and yeah, what ends up happening is when the Silverhelms charge in and my handgunners engage, he ends up killing a lot of my units, and I think he does end up wiping everything out at the end, but I killed that elven general, and I think he's only got like a couple Silverhelms remaining at the very, very end of the battle here. So that was a really intense situation there. And I remember my opponent afterwards kind of recounting how that wouldn't have actually played out like that if this Doomseeker didn't get this wound in right here way earlier in the battle. So it's funny how little things like that can compound into really drastic outcomes near the end of the game. Because I think what actually ended up killing him was like just 2 handgunners getting lucky wounds in on him at the very, very end of the battle here. And he just didn't really roll well on those 2 armor saves. So yeah, there was a lot of other stuff that kind of went down, though. I'll try to kind of squeeze in here quick. You can see it in the photos. He put a pillar of fire down that he got really lucky on. I think he killed one of my cannons with it, and it's going to be also passing through the handgunners before the Silverhelms charge in, causing a little bit more damage. I think one of my Doomseekers got picked off as well by one of the Sisters of Avalorn's arrow volleys. They did a little bit of shooting at my handgunners as well, but yeah, again, that melee actually ended up being really, really close. It was a very exciting battle there. The other side was a little bit less eventful, but still pretty exciting. He charged in with those chariots, and my cannons and my handgunners managed to blast down all but one of them. And it's unfortunate because that one chariot's going to finish off one of my cannons and be lingering on with like 2 wounds remaining at the end of the battle. And I just wasn't able to get the points on it. And it's because of the way like scoring works in this game. Basically, like you need less than 25%. It's not equal than 25% when it comes to scoring like victory points on a wounded unit. And they are like a 4 wound, 4 chariot unit, so basically that means you need to kill every single one of them because they're like a multi-wound model, or you aren't going to get any points for them. And yeah, so that's why I won't get any points for that unit, which is unfortunate. It was really close to getting those points. He again only had like 2 wounds left on that final chariot, but I tried to do it with my rangers, but my rangers ended up getting lit up by the Sisters of Avalorn and his elven archers, and I think the chariot was honestly going to charge them, and I just was like, screw it, I don't want to lose points on this unit, and I had them retreat around the bridge there to hide and conserve their remaining bodies until the end of the battle, which they were able to do, luckily. Other than that, he has that big dragon. I took a cannonball shot or 2 at it. Actually got like 3, maybe 4 wounds in with cannons before it managed to charge in and challenge my Demon Slayer to a duel. Whiffed it didn't whiff its attacks, I wouldn't say. The guy on top wasn't able to get the kill in, and I had to use my Ruin of Luck, I believe, as well for that 2-up ward save that you get. But my Demon Slayer got his chance to deal a mighty blow to this dragon. I rolled the dice. I think I got like 3 hits, maybe 4, but 3 wounds went through, and my opponent rolled his saves. I think 2 or 3 of my attacks got through on this dragon, and I'm like, wow, you know, with those cannonballs, like, we got a pretty decent chance here. I think it has 9 wounds total. Again, it's already taken 3 or 4 from my range attacks. Can we do it? I roll on the multi-wounds, and I get all ones. And I was just like, no, you have whiffed your chance at ultimate glory, my man. You get stomped out by the dragon. I don't end up losing the Slayers by the end of the battle, but yeah, I think like he challenges me 1 or 2 more times, picks off a couple more Slayers, and the game is gonna end. And it was a really close one. This was actually like my favorite battle here. Maybe it's because I actually had a little bit of distance between me and my opponent, but I mean, even with that, we still got into melee like really, really quick. But this was just like a really fun game. I don't know, maybe it's that classic grudge between elves and dwarves. But the elves have kind of been on the losing side and struggling, so it was really good to see this game and like them putting up a good fight against my dwarves, because past couple of times they really haven't, so it was good to see like what units are working for this army. I've also just been interested in high elves. I think later on in this year, probably a couple of months from now, I might be considering starting up a high elf force, maybe when they get their arcane journal or something. But yeah, it was a really, really fun game. I believe the High Elves get the victory on this one by just a few points. It was a very close game and a really fun one. I think if I got that, like honestly, if I got the Chariots at the very end, it probably would have at least been a tie. If not, like maybe I had a couple of points, because I think it's like a 400-point unit. So maybe I would have like gone a little bit closer to a victory. Hard to say, but again, really fun, close battle. Probably the highlight here. Unfortunately, the final game here was a little bit rushed. I had time issues. My opponent had, unfortunately, he had a brother that got a bye on the final game and like kind of just had to hang out and wait. And yeah, it was like really late, and we just kind of only did like 2 or 3 turns here. I'm just going to say, basically it was against the Wood Elves. His dragon does a lot of the heavy lifting in this game, comes around the flank, charters into my Slayers, and like has a chance to push them off the board. We have an epic duel between my Demon Slayer again versus the dragon, and he chokes again on the final game here, which is just, like... I made a lot of tactical errors during the course of all these games, but like there are just little moments like this where it's like, dude, my Demon Slayer, second time in a row, going up against a dragon, he got 2 or 3 wounds in, let's roll on those multi-wounds, and I'm getting all once, and I'm just like, come on, man, like, what are we doing here? So that was really unfortunate. The dragon ended up like losing combat. I think he did kill my character, but he lost the combat, had to back up, and again, we ended up calling it on like the 2nd or 3rd turn. We had a little bit of range fire exchange between each other, but it was a pretty uneventful game, and it was really just kind of a more so me even than my opponent. Just time was kind of running short. It was like, I think, getting close to like 7 or 8 hours total for this tournament here. And yeah, that was the end of my 3rd game in this tournament. Again, sorry, that one was a bit of a rushed battle report at the end there. I did manage to hang around a couple of minutes after I packed up and just get a quick look at a couple of the tables and chat with the 2 guys that I played with in the 1st and 2nd game. It seemed like the dwarf player I went up against in the 1st game, the guy with the Royal Clans army there, I think he went undefeated. I don't know if he ended up getting 1st place. Again, didn't hang around till the end, but I think he won all the battles that he went up against, so it was more just like how many victory points did he get versus anyone else that went undefeated. Also, all the armies that I went up against had some painted minis that looked really nice, but I liked seeing his army fully completed. It had some really fun miniatures with his little piggy brew cart thing. I love that. And just a really nice color scheme. I think he used Highland miniatures for a lot of the guys that you see on the photos here, but just wanted to give him a shout out for a really nicely painted army, and it was a fun game to play against as well. But I will say the High Elf match there, that 2nd game, that was really fun, and I am kicking myself over not getting those chariots and not finishing off that dragon, but what are you gonna do? Sometimes the dice just aren't with you, and I don't think they were with the dwarves in any of these games, to be honest with you. And again, I also just had some poor tactics during these games. I'm gonna have to kind of reflect on and make sure I deploy a little bit better in the future. Maybe, I don't know if I need to take more melee per se, but just like keep things a little bit further back, or like with a little bit more of an angle or something, or just respace things if the board's going to be this tight. Yeah, again, things I'm gonna kind of have to think about for the next tournament in case it ends up being a little bit more close quarters like this one was. But you know, who knows? Maybe I will be taking a new army into the next event. Like I said, maybe I've been thinking about High Elves, but I think that's a couple of months off. Just finished the Orcs and Goblins, and I kind of want to get some games in with them, and they will actually be getting in their 1st match a little bit later this week. So might be able to get some photos in of that and give you guys a video on all that stuff soon as well. Anyways, that's going to do it for this video, folks. Hope you enjoyed. Have a great one, and I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.
you.